My name is Terence Robinson. I'm a research and extension professor at Cornell University, stationed at the Geneva, New York State Ag Experiment Station. I've been here close to 40 years. I think I had my 40th anniversary in June. And I've seen a big change in the 40 years in apple growing across North America. Over the course of my career, I started here in 1984 and soon became convinced that the future in the apple industry was high-density orchards. I was privileged to travel to Europe early in my career. Also, we had an extension agent named Dick Norton who was positive about high density. And so I began a process here in New York of trying to promote high-density orchards, dwarfing rootstocks, and set up orchard trials to prove the point by collecting long-term data. At the time, from 1984 to 1990, my focus was on New York State. I didn't really consider IDFTA as a venue that would become important to me. But around 1990, I was invited to speak at the IFTA meeting, and I had not attended previously because of lack of travel funds. But once I started attending, they asked me to speak several years in a row. I became convinced that the IDFTA was a unique organization that would be a wonderful vehicle to help bring about change in not only the New York apple industry, but the entire North American apple industry. And so I began attending every year. There was a period of time from about 1995 to 2015 where I spoke every single year at the winter conference and attended many of the summer tours and many of the international tours. It was very beneficial, and one of the unique things about IFTA is this partnership that started back with Wally Heiser and Bob Carlson of university research professors supporting this organization and extension university people supporting the organization and coming to the conference and speaking for free without any honorarium or reimbursement for expenses. The organization has also had this wonderful characteristic of the conferences involving leading growers and researchers sort of working, talking together, mingling together, and openly sharing ideas for future apple orchards. At the time I began attending, it seemed like that many of the people who attended were the more affluent, older generation members of farming families. And the younger people in those farm families didn't attend. But over the course of the last 40 years, I've seen a remarkable and I think very wonderful change in that many of the younger generation people on these farms attend IFTA. As we progressed through the 1990s, high density was the major topic. How to plant orchards in these close spacings, how to prune them. We would go to the field, and I became kind of the person designated to talk about pruning out in the field, and whether we were on grower's farm that he was showing how he pruned, or a university farm, our own, or someplace else, I would always step right into the middle of the discussion, challenge people, show what I would do, listen to their opinions, and have a back and forth. And I think that was appreciated by members of IFTA because it gave people out in the field standing around a tree the ability to discuss how do you manage these high density orchards. I really enjoyed that from my personality and the things I like to do, and I've enjoyed those in the field experiences with IFTA members. One of the really unique things about the IDFTA and now the IFTA organization was the desire to travel as a group. And this started with Bob Carlson, that was before my time. But then the organization moved to other people leading this effort to travel to all over the world to study high-density systems around the world. Bruce Barrett was an educational director in the 90s and did a wonderful job with Bob Curtis Travel Agency to lead wonderful tours. And I would go on many of those and sit in the back of the bus and commiserate with different people about the economics of planting systems, whether this had made sense, what we were looking at, and what our data in New York was showing us. And I just had some wonderful memories of a whole group of people from around the world just sitting around and discussing all of the concepts of high-density orchards on the bus. Bruce Barrett eventually retired, and about that time, a board member named Larry Lutz from Nova Scotia asked me to join the board. And so I did join the board and volunteered to help lead several of the international tours. The last one that I did was South American tour. It included Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. It was a huge logistics tour. We had very good participation. It was one to remember because of a variety of little incidents that took us in late at night traveling, trying to get somewhere when we crossed the Andes, traveling by plane between Argentina and Brazil, and then ending the tour after the Brazilian part at the beautiful city of Florianopolis on a tour boat, jumping in and swimming in the ocean with all the IFTA members that could stick around for that entire trip. So I remember the high points and the good points, but as I look back now, there was a lot of worry and a lot of things that didn't go perfectly, but in the end, we had a wonderful time as a group and had really fun experiences. Over the years, many of the IFTA trips were to Europe. Some of them focused on the more northern European countries of the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany. Others focused on more southern Italy, France. In addition, we had a wonderful trip to South Africa. The big ones that stick in my memory are to New Zealand, and then Australia, New Zealand. That combo trip was a big one of my memory. The ones I personally led were to Mexico. The one time the IFTA went to Chihuahua, Mexico, and then to Italy, to Interpoma, and then the big trip to South America. There was a period of time in the IDFTA's history when it seemed like the organization had run its course. Almost all of the major players, growers in North America had accepted the concepts of high density and dwarfing rootstocks, and so there was some question, does the organization even need to continue? It was about that time I was asked to join the board, and the board at that time, I think, really helped transition the organization into what it is now, to move it just from focus on dwarfing rootstocks, the pruning of high-density orchards, the density to plant, to many broader topics, particularly topics related to technology. And since that time, the late 2000s, there's been a flood of new ideas on how to manage apple orchards related to digital technology. And those have become an important part now of the IFTA's annual meeting. The concepts of precision management for crop load, precision management for nutrition, irrigation, sensor technology, drones, digital cameras in the field, and robotics now sort of dominate the topics at IFTA. At the same time, this switch to this more futuristic view of orchards, I think, brought in a lot of younger generation people. And they started to see the IFTA as a critical organization for them to stay up to date on what's happening and to keep their orchard in the forefront of technology developments. So I love the fact that now there's quite a few young generation growers, some of them brought in by scholarships that the IFTA started for young growers, but I think many of them with the farms, the father in the generation of that farm realized he was not geared to adopt digital technology, but the son was. And so the son started coming to IFTA. And it has continued to be a very dynamic organization that leads the way in new ideas for orchard management. Now, there have been some growers who have said, I don't need that, and they stay away. Some large farms think they can do this all on their own, their research. But I've loved the fact that we've now got a cadre of Washington growers and a cadre of Michigan growers and New York growers in Pennsylvania and other states that come, interact with each other, and learn from each other about technology developments in the industry. I'm now near the end of my academic career, but I'm very pleased to see the IFTA as a strong organization and attracts people to their annual conference. They're coming to Rochester this coming year in 2025. I'll probably give my last talk at IFTA there, but it'll all be about topics that I wasn't even thinking about 20 years ago related to digital agriculture. As I look forward, I think this organization will help lead farms into the digital age for both automated robotics things and potentially, precision crop load management with digital technology and precision nutrition management with variable rate fertilizers, variable rate spraying. All of these require very sophisticated computers on both sprayers and fertilizer spreaders, but will lead to more uniform orchards. So I see a very bright future as we move into the next decade and digital technology takes a forefront. Now, there will still be the need for traditional horticulture at these meetings. Planting density, rootstocks, there'll always be new rootstocks. And the NC 140 testing of rootstocks has been a key partnership with IFTA to help growers navigate the many new rootstocks that come along all the time. And there will be need for in-field discussions of pruning that we would always have and arguments about how's the best way to manage it. So those parts of IFTA I think will remain strong, but I think the future attraction for many younger growers will be the adoption of digital technologies in the orchard.